I don't believe in ghosts. I still don't. But there's a difference between belief and experience. And what happened in my hallway at 2:14 a.m. didn't ask for my permission. I stood up from bed, phone in my hand, and walked toward the bathroom. I was already typing, half awake, thumbing a reply to my best friend. No, I'm fine. It was just the pipes again. The corridor light was off. I didn't bother turning it on. I know my apartment in the dark like I know the inside of my own mouth. I scrolled. I typed. I walked. And then I collided with a girl in a white dress. Sorry, I said automatically, because that's what you do when you physically bump into someone. I stepped aside, still looking at my screen, and kept going. It took me 3 whole steps to realize I live alone. I turned around. The corridor was empty. Just the hum of the fridge and that thin line of gray light under the bathroom door. I stood there for a long time, breathing too loud for that hour. The air smelled like bleach. I told myself I was sleepwalking, that I'd brushed against my coat on the hallway hooks, that the fabric had swung out and touched me. The mind is very cooperative when you ask it to make you comfortable. I peed. I washed my hands. I checked my reflection, flat, puffy, the way I always look at 2:16 a.m., and went back to bed. I sent my friend a joke. New rule, I'm buying a motion nightlight before I pee my soul out. I slept fine. The next morning, around 9:40, my boyfriend Liam pulled up to the curb to take me to work. He doesn't live with me. He lives 12 minutes away and thinks I drive like a grandmother. We kissed. He squinted at me. "You changed back fast," he said. "Changed what?" "Your dress." "My what?" "Upstairs," he said, nodding at my building, like the bricks could corroborate him. "I texted you, I'm outside." I looked up. "Your upstairs window?" "You were in a white dress, you know, the long one? You looked over and then stepped back and, I don't know, you were changing?" It was quick. "I don't own a white dress." He frowned the way people frown when they think they've missed a joke. He dug his phone out and scrolled back. He showed me the message. "Liam, here, 9:39 a.m. No missed calls, no video. Just his certainty, like a hand on my shoulder. "Maybe it was a reflection," I said. "From the neighbors. Or you saw my robe. I have a long robe." "It wasn't a robe," he said, "and it was you." The first 2 days were nothing, and by nothing I mean a string of tiny erasures that make you sound stupid when you list them out loud. A mug isn't where you left it. The bathroom door you're sure you closed is open again. Your shampoo cap is twisted tight, and you always leave it half-cocked because you hate the squeak. Your phone screen brightness is lower than you'd set it. Your Spotify is paused on a song you didn't play. All those things have solutions. You're tired. You forgot. Autoplay. Fat-fingered brightness swipe. But on the 3rd day, the smell came back. That bleach note, chemical and too clean, like an argument someone tried to scrub out. It was strongest in the hall between my bedroom and the bathroom, the exact 3 steps where I'd brushed past the white dress. I Googled, bleach smell phantom, ozone scent apartment, neighbors cleaning fumes? The internet said mold, gas line, or a stroke. I opened the windows. The city coughed in. I closed them again. That afternoon, Liam texted me from the elevator.
"Mirror in here, Lags?
What?
Or I'm losing it. Doors reflected wrong, then snapped. Probably old fluorescent.
Don't start.
Coming up. White dress girl."
I put my phone down and sat on the edge of my bed until the knock. We went practical. We went adult. We bought the motion nightlight I'd joked about. We stuck it at ankle height so it would catch legs. We tested it. Walk the corridor, ping. Soft pool of warm light. I laughed at myself. He laughed because I laughed. That night, we made popcorn and picked a terrible movie that used to scare me at 19 and can't even keep my attention at 30. We fell asleep at different angles on the couch. The house breathed. Somebody in the building slammed a door. At 2:11 a.m., I woke up because the motion light turned on. You know how your body recognizes the geometry of your own home? I knew, without thinking, that the light had triggered at the bathroom end of the hall, a bright coin of yellow on the floor. Liam shifted beside me, half asleep. I put my hand on his shoulder. He made a little sound and settled. I stood, barefoot. I took my phone out of the blanket folds and turned on the camera. I don't know why. The phone is the modern crucifix. You hold it up and feel better. I stepped toward the hall. The light was still on, steady. The air smelled like bleach. "Hello?" I whispered, which is the stupidest thing anyone can do, and I did it. "Is someone there?" I lifted the phone so the camera lens peeked past the wall into the corridor. The live preview wobbled. Handshake, my pulse. Then it stabilized. At the far end of the hall, by the bathroom door, a woman in a white dress was standing with her back to me. Long hair, bare feet, head slightly tilted as if listening for something. My hand went ice cold. I lowered the phone and leaned my head around the corner, heart in my throat. The hall was empty. I looked again at the screen. She was still there. My camera saw her. She raised her head as if she could feel my attention roll across her shoulders. Slowly, she turned. I felt the couch behind my calves. I sat down without looking away. I pressed the side button twice to start recording. The red timer 00:01 ticked up. Her eyes found the lens. Her face wasn't mine. She was younger by 2 years and older by 10, like every photo you've ever misremembered blended into one. The dress looked handmade and expensive. The fabric didn't move like fabric. It moved the way people describe jellyfish, all in one piece. My throat finally worked. "Liam," I said, not whispering. He jerked up, blinked, grunted. "What?" "What?" "Look," I said, and I handed him the phone. He squinted at the screen. His eyebrows flinched. "What am I?" he started, and then he stopped. He looked up at the real hallway, empty. He looked back at the screen. The girl in white lifted a hand and touched the bathroom door with her fingertips, like she was learning the word for hinge. "Okay," he said, voice thin. "Okay." The tiniest phone camera servo whir, a breath held too long. We watched her for 30 seconds, for a minute, for too long. At 00:54, the motion light timed out and clicked off. The phone preview was now the only light in the hall. In the screen night, her face was a pale oval. Her eyes were 2 coins. Her mouth was a line that wasn't unhappy or happy or anything at all. At 1:03, she stepped forward and the feed pixelated a little, as if distance mattered on my camera the same way it mattered in real life. At 1:09, the camera autofocus pulsed, the image blinked, and when it came back, she was closer than she had any right to be. Liam swore, just breath and consonants. I stood without realizing I'd stood. At 1:13, she tilted her head to the opposite angle it had been before, like copying a mirror. At 1:16, she put her hand to the wall and pressed, not pushed, pressed, like she was stamping her palm into clay. At 1:19, the drywall gave a little, and the imprint stayed like a darkening handprint that wasn't wet and wasn't dry. At 1:22, Liam whispered, "Stop." He meant the phone. He meant me. He meant this. I didn't stop. I stepped into the hallway with the camera up between my face and whatever would be there if I let myself look around it. There was nothing. There was only the smell, stronger now, bleach and old rain. On the phone screen, the girl in the white dress raised her other hand and touched the place where my phone lens would be. At 1:27, the screen went white. When it corrected, the hall was empty again, on the phone and in the world. I stopped the recording. The timer froze at 1:29. We watched it twice. We watched it 3 times. The imprint on the wall, on the video, was clear. The smeared oval of a palm, 4 oblong finger marks. I went to the actual wall. I turned my head left and right. I touched it. Dry. Unmarked. "Send it to me," Liam said. I tried. The file failed to attach. It failed to upload. When I backed out and opened photos again, it wasn't there. The thumbnail space between 2:11 and 2:14 a.m. was gray. We did all the things you do when you think you're being rational, and also when you realize you can't be. Salt lines, dumb jokes, a firm bedtime. We slept with the hall light on that night and turned the bathroom mirror face down on the counter, because we're grown-ups and we're absurd. The morning after, I went to brush my teeth and found the mirror upright again, a perfect circle of bleach-clean space around it. Liam hadn't touched it. I hadn't touched it. I wiped at the ring with a wet towel, and the rag came away stinging my nose. I stared at my reflection for a long time. I lifted my right hand. My reflection took a beat, less than a half second, the kind of delay you could explain away as your eyes playing catch-up, and then lifted its left. I smiled. My reflection did not. It watched me smile, and then it remembered to mirror me and pasted a smile on like a sticker. I turned and walked out of the bathroom, shut the door, and leaned my head against the cool paint. I counted to 30. I opened it again. The mirror was face down. The ring was gone. My toothbrush was on the wrong side of the sink. I picked it up and noticed the bristles were damp. At lunch, I walked the perimeter of my building, looking up at the windows like a tourist. Mine is 3rd floor, 2 in from the left, with a terracotta pot I keep killing basil in. An older woman on the 2nd floor leaned on her railing with a cigarette and said, "You're the girl with the pretty nightgowns." "I don't have nightgowns," I said. She shrugged. "Maybe it's not you. Maybe it's the other one." "What other one?" She blew smoke sideways like she was bored with me. "Her hair's longer," she said, "but same face." I went inside, dead set on telling Liam this was a prank, or a season of sleep deprivation, or some neurochemical heartbreak from too much phone time. I was ready. I was logical. Then I opened my apartment door and smelled bleach. I bought a new night vision camera, the kind that doesn't look like a camera, a plug-in air freshener with a lens. I felt smart about it. I put it just inside the hall, facing the bathroom. I set my iPad to receive the feed. I left the apartment and went to Liam's. We ordered Thai and pretended to watch something. At 2:08 a.m., the push notification lit the screen between us. Motion detected. Hall. We watched, side by side, too close. The camera's view was fisheye and harsh, the way reality is when it isn't pretending to be a photograph. At 2:10:04, the frame caught a human shape entering from the bedroom side. Wrong height for me by an inch or two. The dress caught the IR like a moth's wing. She paused just left of frame, closer to the wall than a person would be comfortable standing. She didn't sway or scratch or breathe, not like flesh breathes. IR doesn't show facial detail, it shows temperature. Her face was the right temperature and the wrong shape. At 2:10:31, she lifted her hand and wiped the wall with a motion, like a housekeeper who isn't paid by the hour. When she moved her hand away, the wall was a shade darker in a long, clean stripe from hip to shoulder height. She did it again, and again, methodical, like someone preparing a surface. At 2:11:03, the picture broke up, every other line of pixels stuttering like a half-closed blind. At 2:11:06, the screen went to static. At 2:11:09, the feed recovered. The wall was clean. The camera was turned slightly toward the floor. At 2:11:12, a white sleeve entered the top of frame and covered the lens politely, like you cover a child's eyes in a theater. The feed went black. The app continued to timestamp nothing until 2:19. When we went back to the event list, the clip title had changed by itself from Motion Detected Hall to Welcome. I exported the file. The iPad saved it as welcome_001.mp4 without asking me what I wanted to name it. When we tried to play it again, the file existed and did not open. It spun and spun. It sat there, a little square we could click but not keep. Around this point, people tell you to move. They use the word sage as if it's raid. They say call a priest. They say this is a data glitch. They say, you need sleep. I called my mother. I didn't tell her the details because she's old and has a heart that only runs well when you don't throw it downstairs. I told her I'd been hearing someone in the hallway. She said, well, don't go into the hallway. I laughed because she was right, and because that's something mothers are allowed to say. Then she said, do you remember your great-aunt's wedding dress? The one in the picture? Your father said it looked like winter. I don't know why this scared me. It did. I hung up quickly so she wouldn't hear it in my voice. Liam came over after a late shift. He looked like a man who'd had 5 ideas and liked none of them. I dreamed last night I was walking here, he said, and there was a second staircase, the kind that goes up to nowhere? Like in a theater set? I kept going the wrong way. I woke up with my jaw tight. Teeth grinding, I said. Stress. Yeah, he said, stress. He set his overnight bag down and went to the bathroom. He came out with his mouth full of toothpaste, hand lifted in a come-look gesture. The mirror was face down again. There were 2 toothbrushes on the counter that looked exactly like mine. One was wet, one was dry. That evening there was a knock at my door. A woman I'd never seen stood there with her coat half-buttoned and her keys sweating in her fist. I'm sorry, she said, words scraping fast. I just need to ask, do you have a sister? Does she have a key? No. She was in the stairwell, the woman said, white dress. She smiled at me like we were sharing a joke I didn't know, and then she asked, do you know which door is mine? And you said? I said, the one you came out of. And then I realized I'd never seen her come out of any door. She was just there. What floor? Yours, she said, and stepped back, already regretting having told the story, already choosing to file it under nothing. When I closed the door, my hallway smelled like bleach. I wanted to prove I was wrong. That is the most honest sentence I can write about what we did next. We set a simple test. Liam would wait outside in his car with a direct view of my windows. I would walk from my bedroom to the bathroom, back and forth, with the hall overhead light on, in my oldest, most unwhite pajamas. We'd timestamp with texts. We'd eliminate the variables that make you doubt your own shape. At 9:12 p.m., I stood at the bedroom doorway and texted him, "Going now." At 9:13, he texted back, "Okay, I see you." I stepped into the hall, muted gold light, old paint. My feet, my lungs, my heartbeat like something I could set my watch to. At the bathroom door, I turned the knob, opened, turned on the mirror light, looked at my face, looked away, turned the mirror light off, stepped back into the hall and texted, "Returning." As I took the second step, my phone buzzed in my hand. "Liam, the white dress is back, upstairs window, not you." I did what any rational person would do. I started running. The hall seemed longer than it is. The world went narrow. I reached the bedroom door and pivoted, already planning to yank my curtains aside, to lean out, to wave my arms. My bedroom light was on. I hadn't left it on. Someone stood in the center of the room with her back to me, shoulders squared like waiting for a photograph to be taken. Her dress fell like water to the floor and did not wrinkle. Her hair was the color hair used to be in old photographs when all we had was chemistry and patience. She turned her head without moving her shoulders. She looked at me, then past me. Her eyes clicked back to me like a choice. I reached for the door and closed it, slow, because slamming feels like giving something your energy. The latch kissed home. I stepped back into the hall. My phone buzzed again.
She stepped away. "Where are you?"
"Bedroom."
"No, you're not."
"Don't," I said out loud to no one. And because I had said it out loud, I was allowed to mean, don't be in my bedroom, and don't come here, and don't make me look again, all at once. Something tapped on the inside of the bedroom door, like someone whose hands are slightly too cold to knock politely. 3 taps, then 1. I texted Liam, "Come upstairs now." He replied, "On your window." I turned and ran, not toward the bedroom, toward the front door, toward the elevator, toward a stairwell, and a different geometry than the one I share with my own shape. When I threw the deadbolt, the hallway light of the building flicked on as if it had been waiting for me. Liam met me halfway down the hall with his keys in his hand, like a totem, and a face I had never seen him make, alert and empty at once. He didn't ask what was wrong. He didn't say a word. He just put his palm between my shoulder blades and kept me moving. We slept at his place with every light on and every cabinet door open, because there is safety in stupid rules. The house smelled like laundry and coffee. Neither of us closed our eyes. Around 3:30, I stood up and threw away my white bathrobe. The next 48 hours were logistics. Work, calls, my mother's voice like a radio station you can get only when the weather is wrong. We didn't say ghost. We didn't say double. We said, "I'll swing by," and "leave the hall light on," and "text me when you're there." The nights were worse. At 2:04 a.m. the next night, the motion light turned on by itself and stayed on for 6 minutes. No camera notifications, no motion on the feed, just that square of gold. At 2:10, it went off, then on again, as if someone had waved a careful foot through the arc of detection. At 2:12, my Wi-Fi glitched and renamed itself for a second. Liam saw it on his phone. The SSID changed from Netgear 5G to Welcome Back, and then back again. At 2:13, my home assistant, which I haven't set up because I keep intending to read the privacy policy cover to cover, woke up and said in a soft brand voice, "This device is ready." I unplugged it and put it in the freezer, because I'm a child of the internet and I know how to make myself feel better. At 2:19, my phone camera opened itself and took a photo of the inside of my pocket. At 2:20, my pocket smelled like bleach. I stopped aiming for proof. I started aiming for barriers. I put rice on the windowsill because my grandmother did that for weddings. I put 3 glasses of water in the hallway because a forum said spirits don't like to cross them. I stuck a strip of painter's tape at shoulder height along the corridor wall to watch for, what, drift? Push? Anything I could measure. At 2:14 a.m., I was awake in bed and not ashamed of it. The apartment was listening to itself. The painter's tape sighed to the floor. There was a long, patient silence, like a person trying not to laugh. Then a soft sound, the sound of skin on paint. I turned my phone camera on without moving my head. I set it on my chest so the lens could see the doorway. I breathed shallow. The white dress stepped into the doorway like a woman who has always lived in my house and was late to dinner. The dress held itself. The woman didn't. She glanced at me like you glance at a portrait in a hallway. Not unkind, not kind, not interested. Already familiar. She put her hand to the doorframe and pressed. The wood gave a little, the way a bruise gives when you press your thumb to it to see if it's still tender. She moved her hand down and pressed again. A slow, patient molding of the world to her shape. She looked at me one last time, and then she wasn't there, the way a thought is gone when the kettle boils. I exhaled a noise I didn't recognize. I lifted the phone. I hit stop. The recording saved. I watched it. It stayed. I exported it. It exported. I uploaded it to a private folder. It uploaded. At 2:19, the file name changed itself to img0001.mov and moved to the trash. At 2:20, the trash emptied. I lay on my back and laughed once, sharp, because there's a laugh your body makes when there's no other hole for the pressure to escape from. When the end comes, you don't know it's the end, but there's a shape to it, a neatness. Like when you realize you're at the last page of a book because your right hand can't find any more paper to hold. It was a Sunday. The city was quiet in that way cities get quiet when a game is on. Liam went to grab us dumplings because we overeat when we're afraid, and we're together when we're afraid, and that's the math. He kissed the top of my head. He left. The door kissed shut after him. The chain slid. The deadbolt clicked. Ordinary protections. I stood in the hall like someone waiting to be measured for a dress. I said, "If I give you my attention, will you stop?" Nothing. The air felt heavy and new, like the first breath after rain. I said, "What do you want?" Silence shifted in the way silence shifts when the house above you decides to move a chair. Then, from the bathroom, the sound of the mirror light switch. Click, click. I didn't go into the bathroom. I went to the front door and put my hand on the deadbolt like I was a normal person who locked a normal door. Behind me, the floor sighed. I turned. She stood at the end of the hall where the nightlight would always catch legs. She was taller today, or the walls were shorter. Her hair was braided like my hair is when I have my life together. She lifted her hand and wiggled her fingers the way children do when they've learned what a wave means. "You can't be here," I said, because people say that to mold and water and men with keys, and sometimes it works. She smiled the way I smile when I don't want to. Then, very carefully, like teaching a child how to approach a horse, she raised her fingers to her face and slipped them under the line of her cheek, the way you slide fingers under a tight ring to ease it off. Her skin shifted. She pulled delicately up and away. Beneath, the suggestion of another face, not finished, features in pencil. The smell of bleach like the first breath in a sterile room. I put my back to the door. My hand found the deadbolt. I turned it. The lock thunked, an idiot sound in the middle of the delicate thing happening in my hallway. She tilted her head at the noise, then at me. She lifted her hand and set the mask of her face back down where it belonged, with the tenderness of a person smoothing the sheets of a bed they've just made. "Please," I said, and I didn't know who I was saying it to. To her, to the house, to the piece of me that had gotten up at 2:14 a.m. and said sorry to a person who wasn't there. She walked toward me. The dress didn't brush the floor. The floor brushed itself out of her way. She stopped at arm's length and looked at my hand on the lock. She lifted her hand and mirrored me, palm to palm with nothing between us but air. My fingers felt cold without being cold. There was no pressure. There was the idea of pressure. She moved her hand down and pressed it to the door, just above the chain. The wood gave a little. I lifted the chain, slid it to the side, and let it hang. I turned the knob. The door opened. She stood very still, like a person waiting their turn. Then she stepped gently past me and out into the hall of the building. She didn't look back. I closed the door because that is what we do when things leave. The apartment went quiet and then began to make the noises apartments make when the temperature changes and the refrigerator is tired. I stood there for a long time, not breathing, because if I breathed, it would confirm that I had been holding my breath. My phone buzzed.
No white dress.
She left.
You okay?
I think so.
Buzz me in. Door's locked.
I went to the intercom and pressed the buzzer. The building door clicked. I listened for his steps on the stairs. The pattern of his feet I could recognize before I could recognize my own name. There was a soft knock. I opened my apartment door. Liam smiled. "Hey." He stepped in. He looked around the way you look around a room like you're counting chairs. He leaned down and kissed my cheek. "You smell like bleach," he said, and laughed because he meant it as a joke. We made dumplings. We ate standing up. We didn't mention the dress. We watched a man on YouTube build a stone wall in a field and felt safer because walls are honest. He fell asleep on the couch, the way he does, one arm over his eyes. I turned off the TV. I turned off the kitchen light. I left the hall light on because I do that now. I stood in the doorway of my bedroom and looked at my bed the way you look at the ocean at night. Then I walked to the bathroom, turned the mirror light on, and faced myself. I lifted my right hand. My reflection lifted her right. I smiled. She smiled. I tilted my head. She tilted hers. I leaned forward until the glass was almost touching the tip of my nose. I exhaled gently. A clear oval bloomed on the surface and then vanished, quick, like breath doesn't always mean you're alive. I put my fingers to the edge of my face. The skin didn't move. I turned the light off and went to bed. 2 days later, my upstairs neighbor, terracotta pot twin, caught me in the stairwell and said, "Your sister borrowed your mail. That okay?" "I don't have a sister," I said. She smiled in that way people smile when they've decided what story they're going to keep. "Oh, I must have remembered wrong." She touched my sleeve like we were friends, like we'd always been. "Nice dress," she said. "Winter white really suits you." I looked down. Jeans, gray sweater, hands that were mine. That night, at 2:14 a.m., the motion light turned on by itself. It made a soft yellow coin on the floor, and nobody stepped into it. The apartment smelled like laundry. I sent my mother a photo of the basil I'd finally kept alive. Liam texted, "You up?" I typed, "Yeah," and stopped, because I could see my message appearing on his screen before I'd hit send. I closed my eyes. The static was not from a radio. It was the sound of the building thinking, of a wall taking a fingerprint, of a surface remembering a touch. When I opened my eyes, my unsent text was still there. My cursor blinked. I hit send.
Coming up.
Okay.
Already here.
There was a knock. I went to the door. I put my hand on the lock. I said, "Who is it?" My own voice answered, cheerful and warm through the wood. "It's me." Some things don't want your fear. They want your routine. If you walk the same 3 steps every night, something might learn your shape. And if it learns it well enough, it might wear it better than you do.